So we got a bit of news to get to today, and also we have the preview for AEW Rampage. So let's get into it. As Corey Graves is teasing an in-ring return in an interview with PopCulture.com, Corey was cleared to. I think, if I remember correctly, I think Corey was cleared to compete back in the ring a few years ago, and nothing ever really materialized. I think a lot of us probably expected Corey to return to the ring in the Royal Rumble as a surprise entry in the Royal Rumble, like we occasionally saw with other announcers. Jerry Lawler did it a few times. Booker T did it as recently as this year. But Corey's return never came. And now Corey is saying, or said in the interview, that if he did return to the ring, he would love to return to the ring and do something with his wife, Carmella. If anything. I completely understand that. I completely understand the appeal. I completely understand the logic. It would just be a little hard, in my opinion, for him unless they figured out an intergender role for them. Maybe like if they brought back the mixed match challenge, the mixed match challenge, then that would be something that they could do together. But like outside of Edge, there really isn't a babyface in an intergender with an intergender tandem, unless maybe they go with Emma and Madcap Moss. But for that they would have to move Madcap to Raw. Madcap and Emma to Raw. Which the draft is around the corner, and the draft could be something that they do that in. But the fact of the matter is, again, I don't know what the plan is for the announced team, because Pat McAfee is supposed to be coming back soon. I don't know what the plan is for that, but I think that as of right now, it's not like tomorrow where we're going to see Corey and Carmella start teaming up together in WWE, because, well, it's WrestleMania season for one, and number two, it just doesn't seem like something that they would randomly do. It's something that they would need a plan for. And I also think that if anything, maybe they would have Carmella and Corey Graves team together against somebody on NXT. Because the options are limited on the main roster, but they're not as limited on NXT, in my opinion. And maybe they would have a different option in NXT, or a different option and maybe a little bit more options in NXT, but it's something to worth note, because I was a big fan of Corey Graves on NXT, as an in-ring competitor, and I've been a fan of Corey as a commentator, and that's why, in my opinion, I don't want Corey Graves to, and I think this might be the consensus, I don't want Corey to not be a commentator anymore. If he wants to come back to the ring and do a one-off, if he wants to come back to the ring and do something with his wife, that's fine. But I don't want him to not be a commentator anymore. But I think this is something that we're going to have to watch over the next couple of months to see if anything does happen. But I don't think anything will happen right away. I think it may happen in the not-too-distant future, though. Or it could be something that happens down the road. But speaking of NXT, the Schism member, Ava Raine, is now just called Ava, as she dropped her last name. I think if Joe Gacy is the leader, just bear with me on this one. If Joe Gacy is the leader of the Schism, then I think a case could be made for Joe being the only one in the stable with a full name, and everybody else just having their first name. You know what I mean? Like Ava just being Ava Raine, and the other guys just being one name, and not both, sort of like Walter or Gunther. You have one name. And you're not And then that's when they start, like, maybe when they start wanting to break apart, that it's multiple names. Because they're like, oh, why do you get, why do you, oh, because the schism. And it's like, where they start questioning the cult leader. But I think that could be, a case could be made for that, but I don't mind Ava's name being changed to Ava Rain. I mean, Ava Rain's name being changed to Ava. I don't mind that name change. Shifting gears to AEW, to New Japan. Shifting gears to New Japan. New Japan has Battle in the Valley tomorrow night, or tomorrow, which actually I may be well, no, it's in San Jose, so I should be able to do it. Yeah, I should be able to do it here. At the normal time. But we'll get to that in a second. But either way, Jay White will be fighting Eddie Kingston tomorrow at Battle in the Valley in a loser leaves New Japan match. As I mentioned in a previous news video, Jay White's loss to Hikuleo at Osaka, or in Osaka, was not Jay White losing a loser leaves Japan match, loser leaves New Japan match. It was Jay White losing a loser leaves Japan match, which meant he didn't have to leave New Japan. It meant he had to leave Japan. This is if he loses, he will leave New Japan. And there will be no technicalities, there will be nothing saving him to keep his position within the ranks of New Japan. The fact of the matter is, if Eddie Kingston defeats Jay White, it will be the biggest victory of his career, because he will be the one that sends Jay White out of New Japan. But if Jay White can defeat Eddie Kingston, then he'll stay in New Japan, but just won't be able to compete in Japan. So that'll be something that we're watching at Battle in the Valley tomorrow. But also, Tama Tonga, in speaking with Tokyo Sports, went on record to say WWE is apparently knocking on his door very hard, as WWE seemed to be interested in the New Japan veteran and the never openweight champion. But right now, Tama Tonga is injured. So I think that Tama Tonga is somebody that WWE will be looking at maybe later in the year when he's healthy. But I also want to point out to Jay White that if anything, Jay would not debut in WWE until after WrestleMania, because I think people give Jay White more credit than he deserves. Everyone doesn't know who he is. Everyone doesn't know who he is. It's not that he isn't a big star. It's not that he doesn't have a shit ton of potential. It is that people need to step back and realize the casual fan doesn't know who Jay White is, because not everyone watches everything that has wrestling in the name. Not everybody knows who he is, and that's what AEW was guilty of in the build-up to Forbidden Door, that they assumed everyone knew Kazuchika Okada, everyone knew Jay White, everyone knew Will Ospreay, when the reality of the situation is, not everybody does. It's like with WWE and NXT, in the old NXT, they thought, well, it's a WWE property, everybody knows who they are. No, you gotta give fans time to get to know them and adjust it to who they are, because not everybody watches NXT. I'm not saying Jay White should not be presented as a big star. I'm saying you need to take the time to explain to your audience why he is. So the best way to debut Jay White would not be at WrestleMania. It would be vignettes after WrestleMania. That's what I'm saying. And I also miss the idea of vignettes. So let's go with that again. But with that being said, we got more news to get to and the preview for Rampage. So let's end this news video, and I will see you in the next one.